What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most amazing homesteading channel on earth that typically doesn't have a daggone thing to do with homesteading. Homesteading off the grid. Folks, for some reason, you guys must be enjoying the videos lately. I've been getting twice as many emails overnight as usual. Literally hundreds. So what I've done here this morning is I've gone through and I've just pulled some out randomly. Typically what I do is I look for connections. I'll look for maybe half a dozen or so that have some sort of connection. Maybe the event was very similar, maybe the locations, or maybe the locations were completely not even close, but the event was. So interestingly, I said I'm not going to do that today just from a time standpoint. I need to get more of these stories out there. And FYI, the ones that aren't being read on the channel are being put together and released in print and Kindle in the True Haunting series, available on Amazon in print and Kindle. And the link for that is in the description box below. We are getting these stories out there. I do have a reach of 50 million people a month. So I have that ability. Interestingly, I pulled these stories this morning randomly without looking for connections, but clearly there's a huge connection. And the huge connection is that these things, whatever they are, let's talk about orbs, drones, UFOs, UAPs, they've been here for a very long time. This is not a new phenomenon. I'm going to jump right into it here with an email from KD. Okay, KD writes, and again, if you want to send us your story, you can do so by emailing it to us. The email address for the channel is crazylake@mail.com. Do give us permission to share your story. If you don't want your name shared, tell us that and we'll keep you anonymous, okay? KD writes, I finally got the confidence to add a 1973 experience to your channel. And interestingly, we've been having stories from 1973 coming in like crazy lately. And one of our channel members, and by the way, shout out and thank you to all channel members. You guys later today, as of this recording, are going to get a members only video in which I'm revealing a huge surprise. You're going to enjoy it, okay? But one of our members, Linda, said that 1973 was called something like the year of visitations or something because there were so many UFO sightings in 1973. I didn't know that. Thank you, member Linda, for letting me know that. But going on, KD continues, I've held this and told only my wife and 2 daughters and grandson ever since. I was 15 at the time and lived in the middle of nowhere, mostly woods. I had no TV or phone or internet. I only hiked and hunted and fished for fun, or snowmobiled in the winter. On this night, it was 12:30 a.m. and half a mile from the house, and everyone was in bed but me. I believe it was June or July, so I witnessed what you or they refer to as orbs nowadays, okay? 1973, he's 15 years old, sees these orbs half a mile away from the house in the middle of the night. Everybody's asleep but him. The closest neighbor was barely visible in the daytime and 1.5 miles away. I had done some raccoon hunting at night as everything else with some great older mentors outside my immediate family, but I was alone on that night. I never left the house without possessing my pow-pow. I refer to it as pew-pew. You know what that means. We can't say the actual word because social media is very finicky and sometimes they'll, disappear your video or hold it up forever. It's the way I was brought up, so don't judge me too hard. I was an expert shot because of this. Hey, no judging here. I'm an expert shot too. I was brought up the same way when I went into the Army in my early 30s, as a matter of fact, because I went in after 9/11. I was already well trained. So, and I remain that way with my pew-pews to this day. My encounter was simple. 3 bright and silent orbs appeared about 600 yards away and 300 yards above the ground and tree line. I was a simple kind of kid, somewhat silly at times. The orbs were in a row and moving at times fast and erratic. The closest neighbors were farmers and no one would be awake for many miles. I decided to shoot at the middle one for silly fun or see if they were real, I guess you would say. It was the only one that stopped moving and that scared me. It stayed stationary for a few minutes and then went on its way. I was stunned for a while, wondering what was going to happen. The others moved on separate, so I knew it knew me. I didn't feel any weird stuff like some others on your channel, but I will never forget what happened because I never even told my friends this story. Thanks for having a channel to share this. I was one that commented on your channel a few days ago about having a drone experience like you did after watching your video, same day before dark. I currently have no idea their interest in me. Call me KD and share if you think it's important. Thanks. Keep sharing. I watch daily and never miss. KD, you can see my breath this morning. Some folks had said something was going on because if it's so cold, why can't you see my breath? I think a lot of it has to do with the sun's angle. I'm usually facing a different angle, but I had to turn this. I'm out here a little earlier than usual. So anyway, KD, of course your story was important. They're all important. Folks, if you've sent a story and I haven't read it on the channel, don't think it's because it's not important or because I don't like you. I don't even know you, brah. There's just literally hundreds a night coming in. So thanks, KD, for that one. Now we go on to an email from Teresa. Teresa writes, "Good evening. My name is Teresa. I live basically in central Illinois. My daughter and I have had experiences with the UFOs for years. I am 62 and my daughter is 28. I could write a book just on my own experiences, so where do I start? I will start it when they came into my home." Wow. It was probably around 10:30. The news had just gotten over and my husband was off in bed, already sound asleep. I made sure all the doors were locked and I went to bed. It was just a few minutes after I got into bed that an orb the size of a large beach ball came through my bedroom doorway. It was emitting a bright bluish light. This light did not brighten up the room. It was a light that was just of itself. I leaned up on an elbow just looking at it. I wasn't scared though. It was just hovering there, about 3 feet from the floor, just inside the doorway. My husband was still asleep. I didn't want to wake him. Don't ask me why not. I decided to just lay down and maybe it would go away. As I'm laying there, I look towards the foot of my bed. Standing there are 3 thin beings, a taller one behind 2 shorter ones. I would estimate their height as 3 feet and the taller one 4 feet. The taller one had his arms folded in front of him and was rocking side to side. I hear in my head someone say, "It's time to go to sleep now." That's all I remember when I woke up the next morning. My husband got up for work and I told him I had a really crazy dream last night, but knowing it wasn't a dream, and I told him what happened. He leaves for work and I go and get dressed for the day. As I'm putting on my jeans, I notice I have a jelly-like substance in and around my belly button. I am totally freaking out now, thinking, what did they do to me? I hysterically grab a washcloth and start scrubbing this jelly goo off of me. Then I notice puncture marks inside my belly button. What do I do? I contacted Muffin, told them what happened. I then started seeing blacked out SUVs going by my house very slowly. Needless to say, this scared me. We live in a rural area that doesn't receive a lot of traffic. I can tell you our government is very much aware of their presence here. I will send more experiences for you. Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. FYI, it's been maybe a month or so, but I remember about a month ago, we had 2 or 3 different women share stories where they had similar experiences, and when they woke up, there was like a jelly goo in their belly button, and in a panic, they cleaned it out and looked, and they could see like incision marks in the belly button. And what better place to hide an incision mark? I mean, your belly button looks like a bunch of crumpled up creases anyway. You'd never notice it. So, Teresa, thanks for your story. Now, we're going on to one from Boots. And ironically, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, 1973. I mentioned I was trying to have no connection with any of this stuff, but here's another story from 1973. This is amazing. Boots writes, "Hi, Kevin. I've hesitated sending this because it was only one incident, but back in 1973 or 4, there had been a lot of sightings here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So my husband, sister, and I decided to go UFO hunting. We pronounced it like it is spelled, just being silly. So they were going UFO hunting. Let's go UFO hunting. Man, I could have had a good time doing that. We drove out to the country because we thought that maybe we could see them better because we were in the city. We searched the skies for hours, driving along old country roads and almost getting lost even. After that, we decided to give up before we did get lost. We come home, stepped out of the car, and lo and behold, there was one right over us. We stood in amazement as it just hovered over us. It was one of those round ones with different glowing colored lights circling it. I guess it hovered for a few minutes, but I really don't know how long we stood there. We continued watching it until suddenly it just took off in a flash. Seconds. We've always felt like it somehow knew that we were looking for it and decided to give us a thrill. Or no, we always felt like it somehow knew that we were looking for it, them, and decided to give us a thrill. Nobody could ever convince me otherwise, and I want to add that we never felt fear from it. Feel free to use this, and oh, by the way, I get your sense of humor. Sometimes you just crack me up being a smartass. I'm that way too, so yeah, I get you. Thank you. It's nice to be understood. Thanks for the heads up on the crow cold, aka Hachu. I've had a feeling like something like this was on the way. Maybe that's why all of them are acting so squirrely in their weird migration patterns. I knew it was much more than that. Sometimes I just feel these things. Stay safe and take care, my friend. Boots. Thanks for the email, Boots. And again, I'm glad you appreciate my humor. FYI, while I was reading that, I had something pop into my head. I've been meaning to share with you folks. Animals know. Wildlife knows. Birds know. Okay? A lot of us who live out in the country will often throw food scraps out just for the wildlife. A lot of times for the birds, like stale bread, leftover bread. Now, we compost, so most of ours goes into a composter. But there's an area deep out in the woods where I typically would leave some edible refuse just because maybe it's gone over, we haven't used it. I want to share with you a fact that there's a couple of things I put out there that even the wildlife would not touch. And my question is this: if the fur babies and feathered babies of Mother Nature wouldn't put this stuff in their bodies, why in the hell should we? So the first one was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was trying to grow some potatoes, let them spud out, get the eyes on them, and then cut them up and grow them. And I'd missed the time in the spring when you can go to the feed stores and get that stuff. They were all out. So I just got some potatoes from the local grocery store, and I thought, well, shoot, this will work. He used to do this when we were kids back in 1970 something. I was born in 73, so probably 79. You remember, you'd buy some potatoes, you put them in a dark spot in the house under the cabinets, and then when they'd eye out, you'd cut them and you'd plant them and they'd always grow, right? Well, I did this with a bag of potatoes, and a month went by and they never eyed out. But they never spoiled either. Well, I got to reading on the bag and I saw that it said they were organic. And I typically don't buy organic vegetables because several reasons. Number one, it's a scam. Of course it's organic. Anything that grows in nature is organic. Okay. But they have organic farmers seeing over these things. So I guess with people standing there looking over it, they're somehow safer. It keeps the deer from peeing on it. Now, what it is, they do genetic modifications to that stuff, primarily to make sure that you can't take that food and reproduce food with it. So if you get typically GMO or organic fruits, apples, any vegetables, you can't grow more food with that. Now, why would they want that to happen? Come on, do I really need to explain it? I tell you, if you want to defeat an army, you go through their belly. You cut off their supply line so they can't eat. You starve them, you win. How do you take over full control of mankind? Make them 100% dependent upon you for food. And that's what this organic movement is about. So anyway, I took those potatoes and I took them up, way up there past our campground, threw them out. I thought, well, shoot, something will eat these. Possums, raccoons, bears, those things eat everything. Nothing ate those organic potatoes. Nothing. And we have been marketed into believing that this organic food, which is more expensive than non-organic food, is better for us. Yet the wildlife won't touch it. Go figure. Now, here's the second story, and then I'm going to get on to the last story here from Izzy. During the Little C years, we had a friend who would go to like a local food pantry because she was economically challenged. She was a retired senior citizen living on a fixed income, and it wasn't much. And they would give out food to folks in her situation. Well, they always gave her way more than she needed. I think they gave out food based upon households. Well, she's single. She's been divorced for many, many years. Her kids are all grown and gone. They're a little bit older than me. So she would pick through and take what she wanted, then pass the box on to one of her daughters, who's also our friend. She'd take what she wanted, then she'd bring us the rest. I mean, they were giving out enough food for 3 households, and that was wonderful. We didn't eat a lot of that stuff because it wasn't typically the type of stuff we would eat, and it was like the very, very most generic versions of foods you could imagine. And some of it, for example, was cornflakes. Now, it wasn't Post, it wasn't Kellogg's, it was, Happy C-Day Tuesday Jupiter brand. You know what I'm talking about? So cheap it doesn't even make sense. Well, the other day I was cleaning out some storage space where we put provisions, and I actually found some of this stuff unopened. And I thought, well, we're definitely not going to eat it. It probably never expires because it's probably all just glue and paste. So I took that up to the same spot I put out the potatoes. And I feed birds up there too. We have a lot of wild birds around here, not as many as we have in previous winters. And we found more dead ones laying on the ground here than ever. I don't remember ever finding a dead bird every morning when I go out to the feeders like I have this year. And you've seen that in a previous video. So anyway, I dumped those foods out. It was super generic brand cornflakes, a couple bags of that, and a couple super generic bags of grits, and even lentils. The wildlife did not touch any of it. After about a week, I went up there with a rake and scooped it all up, and I threw it away in the trash because I just didn't want it laying on my property. And again, I asked myself the same question. If the animals of Mother Nature won't touch this stuff, why would we put that in our bodies? And folks, I believe this has been by design. I mean, they're not just poisoning us from the air. They've been poisoning us with the food they've convinced us to eat for the last 2 generations. A mass depopulation. The best way to defeat an army is through their stomach. Take out the supply line. You starve them, you win. All right, moving on. This one's from Izzy. Izzy writes, "Hi, Kevin. I have posted comments on your YouTube channel about seeing drones here recently in central Idaho and smelling burnt chemical smells too with no smoke in the air. But I decided to email you about my UFO experiences because they are different than the stories that you are reading to your viewers. I know you get a lot of interesting stories, and I don't expect that you would find mine especially noteworthy, except for one detail about my record sighting, or my second sighting. I find them all interesting. There's just hundreds of them a day, and I just don't have time to get to them all. Glad I got to yours finally, Izzy. The first time I saw a UFO was in 1976 in the southeastern corner of Colorado, close to the Oklahoma and Kansas border. This sighting was very frightening to me because this wasn't far from the time that cattle were being found dead with no blood inside and no signs of any wounds nor tracks or disturbances around them. The community I lived in was at the time the largest beef producing area in Colorado. I was in the kitchen and saw the UFO out of the kitchen window. It was black and disc shaped and hovering like a helicopter, but with no rotors. It was close. It occurred to me that if I can see it, it can see me, and I fell to the ground out of fear and ducked behind the cabinets. I called my friend, same age. We were juniors in high school at the time. He lived in town, I was south of town, and he said he saw it too. I'm not sure if he would even remember this, but I do, and he had confirmed that what I was seeing was real. The second time I saw a UFO, it was many UFOs swarming together. This is what was so remarkable to me. Not one, but a swarming of many. This happened around 1992. I was a senior in high school that year. That's the year I graduated. Give or take a couple of years. I forget the exact year. Our family was on Lake Powell in Utah, where the stargazing is magnificent because there are no city lights anywhere near there. We used to vacation there frequently, and that was always one thing that was different there. You could see the Milky Way like it was a thick sheet of stars. You could easily see and track satellites too. They were quite bright and easily spotted. I was on the roof of our houseboat with my nephew. He was in grade school at that time, and we were lying on our backs in our sleeping bags looking for satellites when we saw the UFOs. The UFOs were many. I am guessing maybe around 30. They were moving laterally and vertically, not willy-nilly or making random moves. This pattern is what told us that what we were seeing was not an exploding star or exploding satellite because it was grid-like in nature. They moved away from a central UFO light and back again, over and over. To us, it seemed like the smaller UFOs or lights were going to and from a central source. It appeared to us like there was a mothership and smaller ships. We watched this for a long while, an hour, maybe longer, then we fell asleep. We were not frightened because they were not close to us. I was thinking that this is something that people would only see if they were in the desert or in a remote area because the night sky is mostly not even visible to most people because of light pollution. This UFO event was around 30 years ago. Oh, did you have to remind me? I just mentioned that's when I graduated high school. Oh, whatever. Hey, man, time's been flying by because I've been enjoying every single minute of it. This UFO event was around 30 years ago, and last year I asked my nephew for the first time about it. I started to ask, hey, do you remember the time? And he cut me off and said emphatically, yes, I remember. I didn't even get my question out, but he knew what I was going to ask, and he seemed quite excited to be asked. I wonder if he was waiting for 30 years just to talk to me about it. After all, he was just a young kid at the time we saw them. Izzy, not my real name, just an alias I use. P.S. I enjoy your channel and watch you every day now. You are smart and always include a lesson in each video. The kids you help with coaching are lucky to have you as a role model. Godspeed. Thank you, Izzy. All flattery, though not required, is much appreciated. I've had some trolls and bots and shills say, oh, I must write all these emails myself because listen to all the flattery in them. No, bots and trolls and shills. Some people actually don't have bad attitudes and can appreciate things in other people that they like about those other folks. So thank you, Izzy. So when I first read that before coming out, I thought, man, video with a lesson. What lesson am I going to put in this video? Well, there was the one about food that really came out very impromptu. That could be one. But I want to tell you another one, a couple. It's funny because you mentioned coaching. This isn't really a lesson. This is just something I do with my son. So I've been coaching him for 8 years now. And, this past football season was our first tackle football season. Had a great season. We made it all the way to our Super Bowl, but lost by 2 points. He's a quarterback. One of two quarterbacks. Now it's basketball season, and we've got half our football team playing basketball now, and we're killing it. We're doing weight training at the high school, getting ready for the upcoming spring training season, spring flag football. We're just always involved with this. But one of Daniel's concerns has always been for me not to embarrass him, like in front of his friends. Now, he's gotten out of that mostly now because he sees his friends actually like Coach Lake. Coach Lake's pretty cool. So I'm always going around motivating the kids, especially the ones that don't have a lot of self-confidence. When I'm seeing with their heads down, I tell them what they need to hear to get their heads up. And it's true. It's true. These kids, I see it in them, and so do the other coaches. Sometimes these kids just don't see this stuff in themselves because they've never had anybody just come out and tell them, hey, you've got this, So that's where coaching is really key. So anyway, Daniel's always like, don't embarrass me. Don't talk to me at practice too much, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. So for the longest time, I really wouldn't. And that's one of the difficulties about coaching your own child. You don't want to show favoritism to your own kid. And I'm not one of those baseball coaches that lets my kid be the pitcher because he's my son. He's a quarterback because that's where he's worked very hard for all these years, and he's daggone good. So, and I'm not a head coach. It's the other coaching staff members that make that decision to put him there, okay? But anyway, this past season, he started coming around a little bit in regards to, it would be okay if I were to motivate him too. So we get in a game situation. We're standing there on the sidelines. He's getting ready to go in. Our defense holds the opposing team's offense, so we're getting ready to go in, take over on downs. He'd come up to me and he'd say, Dad. And I'd say, yeah. He'd say something to motivate me. I'd be like, okay. And I could never think of anything on the spot, so I'd look at him and I'd say, Daniel. He'd say, yeah. And I'd say, don't suck. And he'd go, oh, Dad, and he'd go running into the game, and all the kids on the sideline would just be losing it. They'd be laughing. So I guess the lesson here is, and a lot of you folks see this in these videos, never lose your sense of humor. No matter how dire the situation, no matter how important, no matter how cataclysmic it might seem at times, you gotta laugh. You just gotta laugh. 30 years since I've been in high school. And I'll end with this. This is another lesson. My wife and son were gone all weekend. They're home now. They're being sleepyheads. They were at a multi-birthday party. Four of our two Filipinos were having birthdays within a same 3 or 4 day period. So they had this mass birthday party event. And their ages were from between like 35 and 50. This is a cultural difference, and this is one of the aspects of my wife's culture that I love versus ours. They celebrate every single birthday like it's New Year's Eve. And the reason why is because they feel so blessed to have been given another year at life. Now, I turned 50 a couple of years ago now. I'm in my 50s, and there was somebody I know who's about a year older than me. And a couple of weeks before I turned 50, she got in touch with me to brace me for it. What do you mean brace me for it? And she's like, I turned 50 last year, and I cried and cried and cried for 3 weeks. And I'm thinking, why? Why'd you cry for 3 weeks? And she says, I've just thought of all the things I've wanted to do, all the things I could have done, but I didn't do any of it. And I look at where I'm at in life right now, and I never wanted this, and blah, blah. I'm like, I look back on my 50 years. I think of all the times I should have been dead. Combat zones, in war, getting shot at, blown up, stupid stuff I did in my youth. Living years in third world countries where people were trying to kidnap me, rob me, kill me, kidnap my son for ransom. I look at the simple things like one of the closest I ever came to death was 3 years ago in Charlottesville. I was out jogging 5 miles in town, and I'm watching a light to turn red so I can go through it, and it does. And just as I go through, some yuppie was trying to beat the yellow light, almost killed me. Now, that was my fault for not being as vigilant as I should have been. But there are so many times where at any given moment, whether we've deployed to a combat zone or whether we just go out for our daily jogs, or if we have an accident in our bathrooms or anywhere else in our house, so many times all of us have cheated life and we just don't even realize it. So why would we get sad with the marking of another year of life given to us as a true gift? If you're sad every time you have a birthday and you think, oh my gosh, I haven't done the things I wanted to do, get up off your Rudy Poo candy backside, as The Rock would say, and go out there and do the things you want to get done. Had a conversation with one of the parents, one of the kids' grandparents this past football season before a game. I was telling him about a trip we took a few years ago out to the Grand Canyon. He's going on and on about how he's always told himself he's going to go see it. I said, sir, how old are you? Well, he's 67. I said, are you getting any younger? He's like, well, of course not. I said, you need to go see the Grand Canyon. You've waited long enough. What are you waiting for now? And this look of understanding came over his face. And he says, you're right. So listen, if you're feeling bad because you're getting older, it's because you're not living. With me, I consider every birthday a gift because I've been out there living. And I see it as if, hey, maybe whoever's in charge of all these things will give me another year to live. So with all that said, I hope you got a lesson out of that. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Keep sending them. Again, the email address is crazylake@mail.com. See you for more next time. I'm going to go out there and live. I hope you do the same today as well.